Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Hey, thanks a lot. So you're John. Thanks a lot. I'm Ed. I'm
Yep.
WB6IQN, and this is the second time I'm back. So what does that say? The first time wasn't so bad. So I give a whole series of talks, not all on antennas, and some on radios, um, history of radios, and then basically a lot of these are my lectures for my graduate classes that we kind of made more tailored for ham. I give a lecture on a very popular one is IQ generation of single sideband. You guys have more conventional hams where you have these expensive Collins filters, um, uh, crystal filters, and things like that. But these days, an SDR radio, you don't do it that way anymore. That's why you can do it so cheap. You do it with I and Q. So I give a lecture on that. In an SDR radio, you can have different bandwidths, and it's almost for free. I mean, it's all in a microprocessor. So I give a talk on basically how it's done with I and Q modulation. Um, some trigonometry involved, but I try not to get a lot of math involved in it. But it's pretty interesting. So I give like a dozen talks, and the reason why I give these talks is they came about because I'm a member of probably three, four ham clubs, president of one, and at least a board of directors on almost all of them. Um, and they run out of guest speakers. So they always say, "Come on, Ed, you can come up with something, right? Come up with something." So over the years, I've come up with about a dozen different talks. This is an interesting one that we're going to talk about tonight. So if you guys ever want to hear more, they get a little bit more technical, but I do have more. Oh, give one on the history of the handy talkie, the synthesized handy talkie. People think that's pretty interesting. Okay, anyway, so you're here to hear about the tri-band. So you've already heard about the dual band, which was last year and how we generated that. Well, how do you make a tri-band? Right, that would be the other request. So this is a patented design. Again, Mike Kaufman, our attorney at the university, said, "Ed, your ideas actually are very patentable." I know he says, "I know you don't care, but people care because people are to start copying you." That's very true. A lot of people have copied me. I don't mind people copying, as long as you don't copy and sell them. I think that's pretty unethical. And we've had people do that, but not lately. Since we patented, that has not happened. Okay. So our previous articles have been the DBJ1, that's a dual band, DBJ2, that is a roll-up version of DBJ1. I also did how do you get gain out of a J-pole? That was a frequently asked question. How do you get gain? Internet, you type in gain of a J-pole, people give you all these crazy ideas. Some are good, most of them are crazy. And so I wrote an article, how do you actually get gain mathematically? There's no easy way out of it. You got to make a dual band collinear. And that's talk I give. Pretty clever. It's a lot of repeaters use this technique now. It's not that uncommon, but I just mainly show um, how you do it, how you get gain, how do you measure it, how do you precisely tune it to get the best gain possible. So, we've sold over a good 40,000 antennas over the last 20 years with my group here in Santa Cruz. And that's our only fundraiser. I think you guys know this. That's how we raise our funds. Fortunately, I don't depend on federal funding. We lost about $81 million throughout the whole university from federal funding. They just cut it. That's it. From research of RNA, DNA, astronomy, biological sciences, all our federal funding for radio design, antenna design, gone. But luckily, I don't depend on that because I knew it's very unreliable federal funding. You got to find other ways like what we do is we sell antennas. Now, if you're in biology or something, you have no other choice. You have to have federal funding. Maybe some industry will support you, but mainly federal funding. That all got cut. We got cut about $81 million, which is significant for our university, very significant. But my group goes on, although some of the students have been sent back now. Well, they didn't get sent back. My foreign students have almost all gone back. They're afraid that they're going to come on in and boot them out. So they say, well, we'll come back when the political situation changes. And don't worry about it. I'll remember you. I'll sign you. I'll say, no, this is my student and all that. So I think they just lose some time. But I think things will settle out in a few years. But meanwhile, yeah, we're pretty cut short, I tell you. Okay, but tonight you want to hear about the antennas. So this is our last time I gave you this one, the DBJ1, how you make a dual band, pretty standard. ARRL, it's in the ARRL handbooks. They've got samples there. They've tested it. Yes, it performs the way it's supposed to perform. That's the roll-up version. So yeah, this is the one on an omnidirectional gain. This might be the next talk you might be interested in. What is the theory behind it? What is it? Does it really take? There's no simple way to gain. If you saw April's QST, let me see a hand. How many people read the April Fool's QST this year? Raise your hands. None? You guys didn't see that? There was an article. You know how they do the April Fool's thing? They make it real serious. And here's a new technique. Did I see any raised hands in the April QST? John, anyone raise? I don't see any.
No, nobody's.
Oh, I got to tell you this. Are you guys familiar with the April? They always have an April Fool's, which I think is really bad because it's a serious article. You can't.
Right.
How about these new hams that come on? They don't know that you have an April Fool's article every year. So they had this new gain technique. And if you didn't know anything about antennas, you might buy it. It's a new reflective with carbon material, and we will sell you this for next to nothing, and it gives you 6 dB of gain, and we tried it, and it's smaller than their vertical. I go, no, wait a moment. I've got my PhD in antenna theory. This does not work. But if you didn't know anything about it, you might take it seriously. And then when you flip the page upside down, it says April Fools, of course. They do this every year. I mean, I started reading the article, and this is the April Fools. You've got it because this is not possible. So anyway, this here, an omnidirectional gain for UHF without radios. I really explain it, the theory behind it, the mathematical theory behind it. So there's no just the basic math of what you have to do to get gain. It's got to be a collinear of some kind. How you do it, yes, there's a lot of varieties, but it's got to be a larger, of course. You can't. There's been so much math and theory on can you ever make a small high gain antenna? No, you cannot. It just turns out you cannot through the math. But I'll kind of go through the theory. That's an interesting one. So, but today we're going to talk about this one. This one we did about 10 years ago. And there's my daughter, 10 years younger. She's in her 30s now. This is when she was in high school. KJ6QXM, Tessa Fong. And she's a mechanical engineer, by the way. She's got a master's in mechanical and also a master's in robotics. So she works for Abbott Labs. So we'll talk about this today. So how do we, and it's patented. And of course, even though it's patented, clubs are free to try it out. It's very hard to build. The theory is interesting, but to actually build one, it took some time. You got to get everything all resonating. You need some good instruments. Fortunately for instruments these days, you can get a nano VMA for under $100. It's amazing what you can do with that. Years ago, you needed some HP VNA. But now you can do it, but it'll take a lot of time and patience. And I encourage, if clubs want to do it, I'll send in them. So, every time we work on one of these, what we do is I don't work on out of thin air. I work on it because someone asked me, hey, can you do this? Can you do this? Like the DBJ1 was because people wanted a dual band base antenna, affordable. And then, of course, they wanted the portable. The DBJ UHF ones, they said, could you ever get gain in an easy way? In fact, that was a grant by AC Doherty, which is part of ATD Alarms. By ATD Alarms, he said, they had a UHF mesh network for their fire and burglar alarm systems. And since they were using tens of thousands of these things, they didn't want to go out and spend $200 on the antenna. So if you have like ATD alarm system, there's probably a little rubber duck antenna in your garage. It's a mesh network. It goes to the next guy and it meshes, and then there's some central office that processes it. But if you're way out in the boonies, then you need an outdoor antenna, and that's where we came in. We developed a fairly low cost $50 outdoor antenna, no radios, no lightning arrestor, about 5 dB of gain. So anyway, that's that talk. That's how that came about. They did pay us for this one. They paid us $25,000 to develop it, just to come through with something, and we did. So here's another request. Could you add 220 megahertz to like the DBJ1? Well, that came about from FEMA. I didn't want to go develop one if there wasn't a market. So FEMA gave me a guaranteed market. They said, if you can add 220 to your DBJ1, we would also buy a lot of them from you. And they explained why. An emergency van for FEMA's got a bunch of stuff. Some hams just think, isn't it all communications? No, it's disaster recovery in their vans. The radio is part of it. It's actually a small part of it. But they do cover 2 meters, 220, 440. The 220 is mainly used for packet. If you guys are involved in FEMA, you'll know the standard there. They use packet on 220 because it doesn't interfere with VHF, UHF voice. And if you put packet on VHF, that's okay, but then you try to use voice and try to hear a weak signal. When that packet starts transmitting, it just blanks you out. It desenses your receiver. So what they found was if you use 220, it works quite well. You can operate pretty independently and not interfere with the other bands. So that's why they came to me and says, could you make us a single antenna that would cover 2 meters, 220, 440? And why did they want a single antenna? Because they didn't want to throw a bunch of antennas in their vans. They were kind of explaining me the situation. We don't want radios. Radios break off. We can't screw them on. If you put labels, this is for 2 meters, this is for dual band, this is for 220, the labels come off during a disaster. If you can make things simple, it's all that much easier. They've got enough problems, right? Communications is only one of them. So I said, how about an antenna? What you want is basically one antenna, 5 to 6 feet tall, reasonable performance, inexpensive, instead of, $200 in the $50, $60, $70 range, 2 meters, 220, 440, no lightning arrestor. And he said, great, can you do it? I go, I don't know. I think that's what you want though, right? Goes, yes, that's what we want. And there are tri-band antennas out there, right? I think yes, tri-band antennas. Commercially, there's the Comet CX333. This is an old slide. It's the $200 range now. The Diamond's the exact same antenna. They sell it for about the same price. They must have some cross licensing agreement or something. They use traps. They use traps. Interesting way of doing it. Certainly also uses ground radios. So you need a lightning arrestor. See, if you have a DC shorted design, you don't need a lightning arrestor. It's DC short. So that's what they were using. They thought that, a little too expensive for them. If you bought one, that's fine. But when you talk about thousands, it makes a big difference. And they really didn't like it because it was 10 feet tall. Maybe that game that they really didn't need. Most was just local communications. So the requirements, I said, well, I don't know. There's he made a tri-band J pole in 1980 in QST. And that was in response to the Drake UV3. You guys remember, you old timers remember Drake UV3. It was Drake radio for the time, $12,000. I've had them here. They're not, for what it was, quite a good radio. Let's see what. Oh, boy, okay. I hope my internet's okay. I'm getting this internet thing.
Yeah, we're having
unstable.
some intermittent choppiness, it seems.
Yeah, sometimes this happens because my internet here comes in and out. It's okay now, right? Right now it's okay. It should be okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
They'll tell me when it's choppy. Now I'll repeat it. And then the other article. So that was in QST, and then Dave Meridi. You guys don't know him. He is the guy that's in charge at Kaiser, Southern California, of the communications. And he gave a talk. He never published it, but he gave a talk on at Pacificon on it, which I attended. So let me show you what they have. Oh, these are just like some 220 radios. They're cheap these days. If you're gonna go buy a radio, these are pretty good. I've tried them out. We give them away with raffle prizes. They're 2 meter, 224, 40, BTEC, QIT, radio oddity, $120. They work. They're 25 watts. They work fine. There's a version of the UV5R called the Times3. You can look it up. It's not even $60. It's more like $30 now. It'll go 220. It'll go 2 meters, 220 and 440. So if you're going to buy a radio these days, hey, why not buy a Triband? It doesn't cost that much more, sometimes even less. So they're very affordable. So okay, I look at these antennas and say, okay, I want to make a Triband antenna. What is it that I don't want in an antenna? Interestingly enough, at VHF, UHF, I think I mentioned this on the dual band. You really can't say, you can't include some type of inductor they'd have to buy. You know, well, here's a 1 microhenry inductor you can buy from Anchor. You can't do that because that's too inconsistent. You know, HF, yes, but at UHF, you'll never manufacture this thing. People are going to come back and say, we tried this and it doesn't work. Same thing with capacitors. You cannot require like a, let's say you also, oh, I need a 6 picofarad capacitor to tune it. No, it's not going to work, not at UHF. A ceramic cap will cost you way, no, not cost you way too. It's variation. It won't cost you much. A little, ceramic 10 picofarad cap or 6 picofarad cap cost you 10 cents maybe, right? But if you put that on your little nano VNA that we all have, that's not a 6 picofarad cap at 500 megahertz. It is at 30 maybe, 20. But as you start raising the frequency, as you guys probably know, is you'll start seeing series inductance, you'll start seeing self-resonance, you'll start seeing series resistance. By 500 megahertz, you can hardly even see any of that 6 picofarad left. It's got too much series losses and resonances. So you cannot require that. That's just out of the question of any antenna up in those regions. It's just not practical. You have to do it through transmission lines or some kind of T match, delta match, or something like that. So anyway, I tried a lot of configurations. I'll show you what we came up with. My secret sauce. Okay. So first of all, quick review. 2-meter J-pole. I'm sure a lot of you guys have built these. These are great. If you can find a 300 ohm twin lead, they're really cheap and they work. Half wave radiator, 37, 38 inches for half wave. The bottom matching section's going to be about 16 and a half inches or so. And then you short it. That's the shorting stub. So that's a DC short circuit. So it's a high impedance here. This is just basically an NFET VHF antenna. Right. No different than these NFET HF antennas. You usually have, so you need some matching element down here. At VHF, you can put a quarter wave stub because it's only 16 and a half inches. At HF, you use the 49 to 1 transformer. And that tends to work lossy, but it's better than nothing. And it's hard to do this at UHF because, again, you use that toroid. You can't do a transformer like that at UHF. You need to use a quarter wave stub like this. So it's 0 ohms here. It's be a high impedance there. NFET matches. You tap it off at about 1¼ inches or so, and you get about 50 ohms. It works. I hope you guys have built these. They work quite well. And then, twin lead can pick it up at the swap meet. They're hard to find. Radio Shack used to sell them, but no longer. You can find them at swap meets, or just in your junk box or something. And then you can also stick it into a PVC pipe to protect it. You would have to retune it because the pipe will lower the velocity factor. So if you put it in a pipe, your resonant frequency of this antenna would drop about maybe 2 megahertz. So you may have tuned it to 146 like this operating in air. You stick it into a PVC pipe because of the plastic. It doesn't have loss, but it would change the resonance. It changes the resonance of it to a couple of megahertz. And I think I explained this before. The simple reason is all these dimensions are based on the speed of light is equal to frequency times the wavelength. C is equal to F lambda. That's in your extra class exam. I think it might be even your general class. Standard formula you need, C equals F lambda. If you use C, this is the speed of light, 3 times 10 to the 8th meters a second. You plug that in, frequency, let's say 150 megahertz, lambda is going to be equal to 2 meters. That's in air. But now, if you put it in PVC pipe, you can't use C as the speed of light anymore, 3 times 10 to the 8th meters a second. It's going to slow down by, 5% maybe. 5%. So again, you got to make this about 5% shorter if you want the same resonant frequency. You just have to compensate for that. So that's the 2-meter version. And then we showed that, just as a review, the problem with the 2-meter version is that this is the sky, this is sea level, and this is the bottom of the earth. This is in free space, a vertical dipole. At 2 meters, it looks good. That's exactly what you want. I mean, and you sit here, here's sea level, you walk out here, you're handy talking. That is the peak. Hey, that's great. Sea level, that's the peak. It works great. It will resonate at UHF, but the pattern will be quite awkward. The pattern at UHF looks like this four-leaf clover. And if you're standing here with your friend walking out, at UHF, only a quarter of the power is here. So 75% of it goes in the air. Not good. Cloud warming, right? Not good. So what we did there was we added a stub. We added a stub here because if you remember my review, this stub here, quarter wave stub at 2 meters, is a 3 1/4 wave stub at UHF that still resonates. So that's not the problem. The problem is here, right? At UHF, you want to see only 11, 12 inches and stop. At VHF, you want to see all the complete 37, 38 inches or so. So you add all this up, I think it's about 37, 38 inches. So we added the stub. What happens here is that UHF, it sees 11, 12 inches, depending where you want to resonate. Because this, we put the shorted RG174 coax here, a short, and 4 1/4 inch later, that's an open at UHF. UHF only. So at UHF, when you shove the signal through, it also comes through here. Ah, I see an open circuit. That's great. Because what happens is, what happens here? If you just left it this way, at UHF, this sees a match. It's the third harmonic match. That's not the problem. But at UHF, it wants to see 12 inches. But this is like 37 inches. That's not good because it sees 12 inches. The current goes up. Now what I do? It continues. You haven't stopped it. And it continues out of phase. It continues out of phase. That's the key. That's why you get this pattern at UHF. So the way you get rid of that, you put this decoupling stub here. That's a short quarter wave that's going to be open, but it's at 4 1/4 inches. That's only good at UHF. And again, you say, isn't it 6 inches? It's 6 inches in air, but not in RG174 coax. In RG174 coax, you lose about 30% of the speed of light. Now, don't confuse this with loss. That's loss tangent. It's just a resonance. It changes the velocity factor. The loss is, it's there, but it's not major. It's mainly that when you short it here, it's going to be an open circuit at UHF. It behaves like a half-wave radiator, like a dipole right there, and it's what you want. And it sees an open. At VHF, though, that's not resonant anymore. It goes right through and it sees the whole 17 plus 4 1/4 plus 11 1/4 for half wave. Okay. Now we come, okay, now that I've convinced you, and this is just kind of a review from your last lecture on the dual band. How do you make this thing add an extra band 220? That's a little trickier. I took advantage. You know, the FCC intentionally did this. Third harmonics, just like 40 meters, a 40-meter antenna will work fine, or at least resonate fine at 15 meters or 21 megahertz. I think I showed that in the last lecture how it works. Every half wave, you come back to the same point on the Smith chart. So every half wave, or in other words, if you make an antenna that resonates at, let's say you make a dipole at 100 megahertz, and now you have this nano VNA, you can sweep it. At 100 megahertz, you build a dipole, it dips. It will also dip at 300, 500, 700, and eventually other things come into play, the losses, and sure, it won't go on forever. But certainly the first few harmonics, you will see it dip. So the same goes to the stub, every third harmonic. But the antenna doesn't work that way. The antenna itself, again, at UHF, will want to see a half wave, and it does, because this is short and open circuit. How do you add 220 in this? 220 is not third harmonically related. So you can't take advantage of these tricky things of playing around the third harmonic and all this stuff, you know, like a G5 RV antenna. You guys might know that. It takes advantage of all that stuff for resonating. But it's not odd related, right? 145, 150 megahertz and 220, it's not related. So how do you do this? And it gets pretty challenging because FEMA says, yeah, but if you could do it, we'd pay you big bucks. And I need money. I need money in my group. We don't have any other support. So anyway, I looked these things up, and here's an interesting scheme. This is the Dave Moretti or Dwayne Moretti's idea. He does communications for Kaiser. He just does this, brute forces it. 440, 220, 2 meter antenna. He just uses the Comet combiner. Just combine, and he also combines 6 meters too with it. Combine it, runs one coax down, and then decombines it if he needs it. Well, yeah, that works if you got a lot of money. I mean, you ever price one of these things? A couple $100. And plus he needs 3 antennas. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting article that he wrote. It's in CQ, October. 2016, 2015. I gotta correct that. So that's how he does it. He combines it and decombines it. I mean, that's what you have to do. But not every ham's going to do that. Not every ham. I mean, it's expensive. And plus there's losses. So you go through all these duplexers and triplexers, there's losses. Okay. So that's what the solution. That's when I looked at the literature. The other one was the John Harrison idea. Now that's a pretty clever one. I think that's a pretty clever one. It's also in QST. So he does it this way. This is in response to the UV3R, the Drake Triband radio. I should have a picture of it, the radio. Some of you guys might remember it. They put in the 2 meters, 224/40, but no antenna. So John comes up, here's a good antenna, and publishes the QST. So here's how he does it. And I think pretty clever. So he has a J pole. These are 3 J poles, all in one copper pipe. This is one copper pipe. The good thing about the copper pipe is it's all shielded, right? You can put coax in there and it's all shielded. So for example, a 2 meter J pole will look like this. Here's the 2 meter portion here. Here's the J matching section here. And he puts the coax through RG174 through here, drills a little hole in the pipe so that he sticks the center conductor out and solders it there. And then of course the shield just is at the pipe. So that alone would work as a J pole antenna. So in fact, I think I have a copper J. I usually skip here. Here's the copper J pole, and he sticks the coax inside. You can do that. Drills a hole here, and then this tap just comes right out like that. So it's a version of this, except he sticks the coax in there since it's shielded, and it just taps it off. But he goes one step further. He says, that I get that working. If I want a 220 version, I step it up here. Here's a 220 version of a J pole, quarter wave at 220, half wave here at 220 left here. And again, you drill a little hole and you tap it off. And then it's RG174, so you stick it through the pipe, back down through here, and you're okay. And same goes for here. For UHF, now it's getting a little tight. Again, you move the coax down to here, drill the little hole, and here's the UHF J pole. So here you've got 3 wires coming down, you've got 3 bands. You can do this because the pipe serves as a shield. And this is a pretty good design. The problem is I couldn't sell this to FEMA very well. It looks kind of bad, sticks out. They wanted something real clean, all in one pole. But I tried this out, and yeah, it's a principle that's pretty sound. It takes a lot of effort to make because there's a T, there's an elbow, there's caps, you got to drill holes. It's quite an effort. Not so sure you can make this and think you could sell it for $50, $60. That's the thing about antenna design, right? You can electromagnetically meet all the equations and the thing works. The second question is it practical? It's what a mathematician say. You get one to resonate may be sufficient. I mean, it's necessary, but is it sufficient to make a good antenna? Well, as you guys know, an antenna requires 2 things. It's got to be necessarily resonant, but then it's got to be practical. That's the other thing. Mechanically, can you make it? Is it feasible? It's just not the electromagnetic. So this is electromagnetically feasible, but it's pretty hard to make, at least at a good cheap price. So here I'm stuck with this. Here's the dimensions of the 2 meter J pole. Here we added the UHF. And this is what we basically want to do. This is when I looked at it. Here's the dimensions for a 220 J pole. Get one working, make sure it works. Yeah, you take the dimensions, about 25, 26 inches here, about 10 inches there, tap it off at about 3/4 inch. It resonates. But the problem is this: how am I going to combine that with that? Right? That's pretty hard. Somehow you got to superimpose it on one coax. And if you think about it, this is about not quite 6 feet, right? It's not quite 6 feet. It's about 5.5 feet. It's about 5.5 feet. And then here's the 220. That's about about 3 feet, right? It's about 3 feet. 5.5 feet and 3 feet. So you're talking approaching 10 feet. If you were to if you can find some way of stacking it, and that's hard to do because how do you stack it? Because this has coax coming through. If you put this on the bottom, the coax is going to come right through there. You'll kill the resonance. It has to be in free space. But anyway, nevertheless, if you had found a way to stack it, you're talking about 10 feet, which is way too big. Way too big for what female would. They would never accept this. But the point is, I got this to work, and I tried this. This is a thought. I said, well, try this. Make a copper J on the bottom for the 220. Here's the dimensions for 220. Because with a copper J, you've got the shield on the pipe, right? It's 1/2 inch pipe. You can drop the coax from the dual band antenna through here and it won't interfere. Because you can't put it on the outside, you'll change the resonance. You take advantage of the shielding properties. And I tried this, it works. Again, it's about 10 feet tall, but it works, which is good. The question is, again, this is necessary that you have resonance, but it's not sufficient, right? The whole mechanically, the antenna is not very practical. And you can hold it up with some type of more PVC pipe here. So what you would do here is you make the bottom out of copper, and this would be out of a PVC, and you would slip the coax through 10 feet, though, pretty tall. Problem, I knew they wouldn't accept this, but I was playing around. It worked. Yeah, so I tried this. Again, remember, I can't take advantage of that resonance anymore. Next thing is I tried this. 12 inches, 12, that's halfway resonating for 220. So I tried just to see how much would it interfere with a functional dual band antenna. It turns out you can get it working. The trick here is the balance. You can't unbalance this coax. If you unbalance these, then you'll get common mode currents in the outside, and then the SWR goes to hell. But if you make it symmetric, if you make it identically symmetric, you can get 220 to resonate here and still not disturb the antenna. So you still get the 2 meter and 440 working. And again, resonance is necessary but not sufficient. So we got resonance in here, 2 meters, 220, 440. That's necessary, but it's not sufficient because now that's horizontally polarized. Two things. It's horizontally polarized. Female wasn't going to accept that. And as far as they're concerned, it looks like radials, right? That's radials, isn't it? Well, yeah, it kind of is, right? It looks like radials. It's really a horizontal dipole is what it is. But we knew that this wasn't acceptable. But again, what's important is you try these things out and just see what works, what doesn't work. And we know this is not physically going to be accepted, but we know it works. So we need to modify this somehow. So I started modifying it. Remember, the good thing is this didn't increase the height, right? The height is still 49 inches. That's still pretty good, except you got things sticking out. So I said, what happened if we start bending these radials? Just to play around with it, make a circle, semicircle out of each one. It kind of works. At some point, it loses resonance. At some point, it's because it's too close to the antenna. So that idea kind of went out. So here, this idea worked because I went back to Halliday and Resnick's book. That's a freshman year electromagnetics in college. He said if you excite a coil or the current, the magnetic fields it emits is going to be 360 degrees like this, and it's like a toroid, right? The middle, it cancels in the middle. Well, that's interesting. Theoretically, in the middle, it cancels. So ideally, could you possibly wrap that 12 inches? Remember, you need 12 inches because that's the resonance for quarter wave each way, right? 12 inches, 12, that's a half wave. Could you coil it up with thin coax? Remember, I said RG174, that's the thin stuff, not RG58 or RG8X, RG174. Could you wrap those 12 inches around? Would it be sufficient where it kind of, I mean, it's not perfect, but is it enough not to disturb the field, or at least still to achieve resonance, dipole resonance, because you have a quarter wave at 220 up here, quarter wave down here, here's the coax, here's the twin lead. I played around with it a lot. First, I didn't think it would work, but thank God for the network analyzers. I could see some resonances somewhere. I go, well, that's interesting. It is kind of resonating. And what the trick is this. If you make these coils really, really well, in the extreme, it's a dipole, it works there. But how much can you coil this? If you coil it 3 turns, then the coils are pretty big, but then it's horizontally polarized. It will work. That's because it's horizontal. If you make it too tight, then later that center wire, that null you're emulating isn't perfected. So we found that, about 6 turns, which makes it about 3/4 inch, 6 turns each way, it will resonate. That's amazing. It will actually resonate, and you can tune it. And in fact, so you make the antenna like this. Regular dipole, we had coax, and then there you symmetrically about 6-7 turns out here. And with a little bit of playing around, you can get this thing to work pretty well. You say, well, how well can you get it to work? Pretty well, actually. This is a simulation using Fedco between, we try to simulate it with a wire going into the middle of the dipole coiled. And compared to a regular dipole, performance-wise, it's fine. It's actually quite good. What the difference that you see it here. When you coil something and try to resonate, as you know, the bandwidth goes down. You lose quite a bit of bandwidth, but it's still very usable. And luckily, the 220 bandwidth is pretty short. It was 222 to 225. So yeah, it's at its max. It starts peaking up. The dip is quite steep. But I mean, for 220, it's good enough. It'll get you within the 1.5 to 1 at the band edges, and it will resonate. It's, whenever you make a high Q antenna, that's what's going to happen. And then, of course, at VHF and UHF, it's fine. It's still like a regular antenna. That didn't seem to get harmed. Let's see. Yeah, so here's our lab here. You see, I've got one of these nano VNAs, and we require that for all our students. For under $100, you can't afford not to have one. They're very accurate, by the way. You calibrate them. It maybe loses maybe 10 dB of dynamic range over a Keysight, full-size network analyzer. Here's our old one back in 2008. We still have this. That's a workhorse. That is not operated by a computer. It's all boards in there manually. Pretty cool. I mean, it cost back then $80,000. This one, the new ones, it's actually just a PC in here, and the RF front end is all this board. It's a vertical board, and then it's all driven by a PC. It comes up in this one particular comes up in Windows 10. You can even use it as a PC, and you just choose an icon, Keysight Network Analyzer, and then it activates all those buttons. It's pretty cool. Let's see what else I have. Okay, so that's it. Any questions on this? The idea of so here's my daughter with the antenna. So any questions on this configuration?
Anybody?
I thought, a lot of people think it's pretty clever. It's a DC short, so you don't need a lightning arrestor. It covers, again, 2 meters here, 440 here, and 220 with the coils.
All right.
John,
Throw in some questions.
Yeah.
How much effect the diameter of the tubing makes on bandwidth?
How much effect does the diameter have on the bandwidth?
Diameter
On 2 meter.
of what? Of the coil?
PVC pipe.
Yeah.
too.
Oh, none. Oh, no, the 2 meter just works fine. That'd just be a regular J pole. What you're saying, the diameter of the PVC pipe or what?
Yeah, but I'm thinking it, normally you make a J pole out of 1/2 inch copper. What would happen if you made it out of 1 inch copper?
I see. I see. Yeah, you're saying in the copper J pole like this. Yeah, this actually has pretty wide bandwidth because it has a low Q. Again, if you use twin lead, I think a lot of people do. Here, if you use twin lead, here it is on 2 meters. Here's the bandwidth. So you can bear. It's operable at the edges. It gets up to about 1.4, 1.5 to 1 at the edges. That's if you resonate at 146. You're right. If you use a copper J, it will probably give you wider bandwidth because its Q is lower.
It would affect it.
Anybody else? We have one other.
One of your existing tri-band and.
Hey, how
I'm sorry, go ahead.
say this again? Yeah. Repeat the question.
If you have one of your existing tri-banders and it's dropped out of tune, what do we need to
Yes.
do to bring it back to tune? Just open it up and kind of re-twist the coil?
So I cover that in the article of how to tune it. Did yours go out of tune?
It's a little bit, but it should pop right back in. I'll read the article to retune it. Thank you.
Yeah. You got what band is it out of tune?
The 221.
Oh, that's easy. Oh, it's interesting. So when you tune this, you pop it out. Well, okay, maybe this. You pop it out. It turns out if you scratch the coils, you will lower the frequency. Scratch them symmetrically. Very important to try to do it as symmetric as possible. Otherwise, you get common mode currents. And if you compress them, you will raise the frequency. So just do it very carefully. And when you tune these things, what I tell folks is you don't have to tune them up at your antenna side. You can bring down the antenna. What's really important is the coax. Try to use the same coax type and coax length because that's what affects the SWR. As long as your antenna is semi in the clear, you're fine. But try to use the same length and type of coax when you're tuning it. Because you guys probably noticed this on VHF, UHF. Boy, you change coax and the resonance goes off, easily, 0.5 to 1%. And the problem is if it goes off 0.5 or 1% because you change coax, well, 1% at 450 megahertz is 4.5 megahertz. It's a lot. So you got to, I recommend that you always tune the antenna. Okay, I'm going to repeat this. I see the internet is unstable again. Tune the antenna with the length of coax and the type. Try to match it up. Then you'll see it match. That's really important. That's one thing we found. Okay, any more questions? Come on up. Come on, ask me questions. It's free charge.
Oh, sure. This was in service of a contract, so I'm assuming it was successful. I'm presuming some number of these antennas. I'm wondering about consistency, I guess, in terms of the practical manufacturing of, how much variation of that and such. Are they a practical antenna, at scale?
Basically getting a question about how consistently they're manufactured at scale.
Okay, so my students give me pieces, but I tune and assemble every single one. They'll drill the holes, they'll put the connectors, they'll cut the coax here, they'll cut this piece, but I tune and put together every single one. To make it consistent. We build these in class, and yeah, you're right. Some of the students says, you try to sell this in volume? Well, I tell folks, when you've built thousands, you get pretty fast at it. I'm very fast at the network analyzer. But yeah, you couldn't have students do it. They'll ruin so many, these little cuts. That's the VHF, UHF cut, and the stubs. Half of them will go in the garbage. But I'm pretty good at it. So I even fail, but I can do it because I just practiced it a lot. So yeah, it's pretty consistent.
Anybody else?
Now, so the other thing is I give you guys. Oh, here's an interesting talk. Are you guys familiar with this? The USDX radio? It's a QRP. It's a radio designed by the California QRP Club.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, so this is a really cool radio. I had nothing to do with the design. I just use it in my class because it has INQ that we can, generate single sideband as an SDR as opposed to using filters. Because all modern radios do that now. That's why you don't see. And I agree. I think I like the filter method in terms of performance, but you can't beat it in terms of cost, right? This radio, the USDX radio, it's all based on an Atmel chip right there, all in the digital domain. They brighten software, 100 hertz filter up to 4 kilohertz. It generates single sideband. The uniqueness about this radio, and again, I give a talk, it's a 1 hour talk on it. It uses BS 170 FETs. That's what intrigued me. This is the final output stage right there. It uses 3 FETs. And you say, where's the heat sink? Don't you need a heat sink even for 5 watts? It's a switcher. These are in a switch mode, just like a switching power supply. Andrew Semulak, who did his PhD on this, figured out a very clever way how you do a switching RF amplifier. So that's in a new Flex Radio amplifier that they're advertising now that uses a switching amp. So I'll discuss, if you guys ever want to hear a talk on this, how the principles of a switching RF amp works. It's not just simple switching like in a DC power supply, because it would demand it to be so fast. At 28 megahertz, you would need a switching transistor at 200 to 300 megahertz. That's not practical. But he figured out a really clever way of how you switch this at a low frequency. So that's why I like this radio. This thing will go. It includes 4 ampere hour battery. It will last all weekend, all field day. The battery problem is gone. You can transmit all you want and you can't kill this battery. I charge mine up and it's good for months in my shack. Months. Does someone have a question on this radio?
No, I was just
Question?
commenting.
No. Okay.
So,
But it's pretty, it's very well thought out. I require for my students, because we do the INQ, it's kind of the lab exercise of how you get INQ, because I do go over conventional Collins radios, and yeah, these things are just way too expensive. But again, this probably doesn't perform like a Collins, like any SDR. It's pretty clever though. It's very clever. And so we don't put them, we test them and we put them together. Make sure the PC boards are good, and as an exercise, we put them all together. So I have a few. I don't advertise these. If you guys need them, they're $150. It costs us $150, all tuned, all ready to go, guaranteed by me. I make sure my students can put these things together right. It's a pretty cool radio. 80 through 10 meters, all mode, including digital, CW encoder, single side. Anyway, so I have a few. Oh, hang on, your internet's unstable. Let's get this. Somebody's using it. Hang on. Okay. I have a few. If you want to order them, they're $150 with the battery, mic, and charger ready to go. But it's not like I don't put it on our website. We don't have enough of those. It's just leftovers. It's the reason why is the hams. My students that are hams, they tend to keep it. But people that are non-hams, I tell them, yes, you still have to do the exercise, but we will buy back the radio. Those are what we have, the leftovers. So I've got a few. It's not a whole lot. But anyway, so as I offered you guys, so you guys are the tri-band antenna in this case. You guys already ordered the dual band, but you still could do the dual band if you like. But the tri-band antennas, instead of $75 plus $20 shipping normally, since I gave you guys a talk, if you guys want to order it, they're $60. And since I'm going to send it in bulk, there's no shipping. It's cheap in bulk. So I'll give John or Adam the spreadsheet. Again, any of these other ones you want to order, the DBJ1, DBJ2, The game UHF one, it'll be on the spreadsheet. Again, that's how we raise our fund. So we really depend on that, and it's a good donation to our club, or my group. I won't call it a club. Anyway, if there's no more questions, yeah, feel free to email me. I'm usually home, with the exception of times I'm in class or giving lectures. I'm usually home. Just give me a call. I'll be more than free to talk to you. And of course, Field Day's coming up. That's a big event for us. My wife and I are the Field Day chairmen. And if you guys are here, come join us. We offered this year, it's a big Italian dinner. Pizza, my heart pizza with, I think we're ordering like 30 pounds. I'm not sure where I'm finding out, about 30 pounds of different lasagnas and salads and desserts. So we have lots of fun. Anyway, no more questions? Come on, throw me some questions.
No, we really appreciate your time, and we will get this information out to the club and get a club order together. So let's give Ed a big round of applause.
Yeah, I'll send you the spreadsheet.
Thank you again.
So if you guys, a lot of people. Hey, John, if people are interested in this radio, I can give a whole talk on it. It's really interesting the way they've worked on this thing so long, the Northern California QRP Club. I think I give them a hand. It's a very well done radio.
Awesome.
We've kind of dissected it, in my class. We dissected. So if you guys are interested in how a modern software defined radio kind of works, this is how it works. It's amazing that with the technology you can make it so cheap. I mean, it's all in that chip right there, the microcontroller. I'm just amazed how they do this. There's not even, did you know there's not even an audio amplifier here? You know how they do the audio to the speaker? That's a digital chip. How do you get audio? They sigma delta modulate it. They pulse width modulate, the audio, and then you filter it to get audio. That's how clever it is. Because that's not an analog chip. That's strictly a digital chip.
Right.
It's amazing. You figure, how do you get audio out of a digital chip? You pulse width modulate the pulses, and then later when you integrate it, put a capacitor and a filter, put it through a speaker, the wider the width, the higher the volume, the narrower the width, the lower the volume, and it sounds pretty decent. You got to hand it to these guys. I mean, I couldn't do it.
Right.
I kind of know the theory, but to do all this, it's amazing.
Wow. Well, we'll
So anyway, Flex Radio, the
again.
new. Yeah, if you need to talk, it's a really interesting design. It really intrigues me how they do this. Okay, hey, you guys have a good evening. It's getting late there, and thank you
the same.
for inviting me.
Thank you.
Invite me again. You're very welcome. Bye-bye.